My name's Suzanne Boulter. I'm 57. I was born in 1964. I originally from East London. Moved up to Chelmsford 29 years ago. And I'm a wages clerk at Tesco's. I lived in a tower block in East London. We lived on the 7th floor. I used to walk to school, primary school, without my mum. So, which I don't think many children do that now, do they? They get taken to school. So I walked to school. I don't know if it was any more dangerous back then. I think maybe just social media tells you that it's more dangerous now than then, but it probably wasn't. Although we lived in East London, I remember we did have quite a lot of open spaces to play in, contrary to popular belief. I think you don't, especially if you live in a tower block. I shared my bedroom with my 3 other sisters because it was only a 2-bedroom flat. So we had bunk beds and a single bed and a cot. I'm the oldest. I used to get into trouble for everything. I had lots of cousins. I've come from quite a big family, so all of them on my dad's side, all of my aunties and uncles all lived close by. So we had our friend group was probably like also our family group because it was all my cousins that I was friends with. So we always played together. There was always like lots of us.
What invention from your childhood would you say amazed you most?
Video recorder. So I remember being told by a friend when I was in primary school that she'd gone away to see her uncle. Her and her family had a big farm somewhere, I can't remember where it was. And she came back and she was absolutely fascinated, and she was trying to explain to us that they all went out for the day, and when they came back, they watched a programme that had already been on the television, so they didn't miss it. And we were all quite fascinated by that. It was like, what are you talking about? How can you do that? And then it wasn't until about a year and a half later, my dad got one. And I always remember that, pressing the button and being fascinated with where you put the cassette in when it used to lift out the top and then push it back down again to record what you wanted on the TV. So that's probably the big invention that I, as a child, that I probably remember.
What would you say the biggest invention now that has like impressed you or like impacted your life massively?
It's got to be the internet.
The internet.
Yeah, it's got to be the internet. I think so. I feel I'm just amazed that I can just literally pick up my phone and say, like literally just Google anything that I want to know or find out. Whereas before, when I was a child at school, or even when I had the kids when I was much younger, you used to just have to go to the library or search up in encyclopedias and stuff like that. Whereas now it's just like all knowledge is just so instant. Just as soon as you want to know something, it's just like that.
There in your hands.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest fad that you come across that you remember?
Do you know what? I think of all the things, it wasn't from my childhood. I cannot understand why some grown men or like boys, want to walk around with their underpants showing. That is the weirdest one for me. Yeah, I think of all the things that I've seen, shoulder pads, but at the time they weren't odd because everybody had them. But when you look back at it now, when you see them when they've got all their shoulder pads in, you just think, oh my God, they look ridiculous. Because when I grew up, there was like, we had lots of mods and rockers and skinheads and punk rockers and all that sort of thing. But I think because we were in London, it's quite a diverse place to live and grow up in. So, and I suppose it didn't seem that weird. Because like we would go out and go up to, when we were teenagers, jump on the bus and we'd spend our time like walking around up in the West End and Covent Garden and places like that as teenagers. So you see all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And it didn't seem strange to us then.
What's influenced you most in your life? What's made you who you are today?
The person that influenced me the most, I think the people that influence me the most are probably my mum and my sister Lorraine. My mum, I think because my dad would be quite violent and volatile. I always think that she handled that quite well. I don't think you appreciate how well someone handles that until you get older and you have your own children. And then I think Lorraine, because of the fact that she can't hear, and I always find her quite inspiring, that she does, like as she is and how she approaches life, and the fact that she's got a disabled son and she just seems to just do so well with everything. I always feel like she's quite inspirational, Lorraine, I think.
What are you most proud of?
I think probably my children. Growing up, I don't think I've always worked. I've worked since I was 14. I've never had a job that I was like really passionate about. So when I look back on it, there was never a thing like that I wanted to go to university or I wanted to go to college and learn something. I just wanted a job and earn some money, pay my bills and have a nice life. But I felt when I had my children, I always feel like my children are my achievement. There's something that I really enjoy being a mum. That was my one, I think my one thing that I'd say that's my good achievement. I think I've been a good mum.
Would you say that's the most rewarding thing?
That has been my single most rewarding thing. I don't think I wouldn't change it at all. I loved it. I've loved every minute of it.
What do you think is the most rewarding thing about getting older?
Probably just watching, because I've got like nieces and nephews and I suppose of my own children. I think it's rewarding watching them do well and be happy and settle down. You know, find nice people that you think that they might spend the rest of their life with. Watching them learn from their mistakes and pick themselves up if they've, sometimes go for a little bit of heartbreak or, their first relationships and stuff. They think that they're never going to get over. It's nice when you watch them grow from that and things like that. So yeah, I think that's one of the rewards of getting older.
Looking back, are you content with most of the choices that you've made?
Yeah, I think so, because I'm happy and content with my life now. If I'd made different choices then, would I still be in the same position that I am now? So I'm not, I don't know. I think I am content. I think maybe sometimes there might have been a few things that have happened in my life that maybe I could have been a bit firmer about, rather than allowing things to go on for too long. Maybe put my foot down firmer. But then would I have still had the same outcome? Maybe when you're just sort of, I'm not the sort of person that like for arguments and things like that. I don't hold grudges. Once I've said my bit, that's it.
What's the most important lesson you've learned in life?
I think to be tolerant, and I think that the more diverse like people are around you, and the more you understand or try to understand why people do what they do, I think it just makes your life more interesting.
What's some life advice you would pass on to my generation and people my age?
Make the most of your youth, I think, because it goes really quick and you don't realise how quick it's going until you have your own children, because it feels like it's lasting forever when you're young, and then you realise that it does go too quick, and don't have any regrets. And if you really want to do something, do it.
Do you think there is a divide between my generation and yours?
I don't feel like there's one personally, but I feel like there are some people of my age group that just don't embrace, how can I put it? They don't like change, and they don't like to try new things, and they can be quite intimidated, I think, by like like computers and phones and stuff like that. But I feel like that they're the ones that miss out by not doing that. I mean, I know a lot of them say, "Oh, it was definitely better when we were younger." But I think they have this misconception of, they think that all children only sit on computer games, but children do still play out. They've had the same opportunities that we've had. They still go to the park, they still go to the cinema, they still go out to eat, they still meet their friends. They're not all, I think a lot of people have this misconception that like all the youngsters are all isolated and they only talk over social media and stuff like that. But it's just not true, is it?
What do you think is different to when you were younger versus now?
Well, apart from social media, I think if I could get rid of social media, I would. I don't like social media. I think it's quite negative. I think it has a negative impact on more people than a positive impact. So I think that's obviously a lot different. I think a lot of people, I think it just causes a lot of anxiety. I think everyone seems to think that everyone's having a great time because they have these little snippets of someone's day, but that's only seconds of someone's day, isn't it? It's not actually their whole life. But I think probably that's the only thing that's different. I think apart from that, I don't think it's much different.
So do you use social media yourself then?
I do use social media, but I don't put like photos, and I try and I'll share like positive quote things, or I'll have a little look through and send happy birthday to stuff. I quite like the idea. I mean, some of it is great, especially if you've got, say, like a sister that's deaf. I feel like it's opened up a lot for her because, everyone's on the same level, aren't they? There's like deafness is not as be seen as a disability because everybody's just, you're not talking, are you? You're just typing. So I feel in that respect, I think that's like communicating, because when I was younger, if I needed to speak to her, I could never like text her or ring her up. Whereas now I feel like it's quite easy for me to communicate with her if we're not in the same room. So I suppose that's quite good. That's definitely something that's different for me than when we were younger.
Would you say social media is quite an important part of your sister's life, or even like it's like a lifeline for her? Would you view it as that?
Yeah, I think so. I think for people that have a hearing disability, I would say that probably social media is a wonderful invention. I think so.
How do you feel about the future that we have ahead of us?
I always thought that it was all sort of moving in quite a nice direction until the war kicked off. Now I find it really volatile and quite scary because we've got a raving lunatic out there that's got access to nuclear weapons, and like that worries me. I didn't really think about that before. Never really thought about the world could be destroyed. And then you look at what's gone on in Ukraine in the last month and what's literally happened. Like some places have just been completely flattened, and 10 million people have been displaced in like 20 days. I think if they don't, like growing up when we were kids, we had in London, we always had like bomb scares and stuff with the IRA and stuff like that. And you do sort of just, you stop thinking about it really. I know it doesn't make it any less dangerous, but it just becomes part of your life. But then you see what's gone on in Ukraine in the last few weeks, and I feel like that's just shocking, because that's something that you've seen in black and white pictures from like the Second World War. So I find that quite worrying for the future generation if they don't sort that out. Because I feel like the biggest thing to worry about before that was climate change. But if you haven't got a world to live in, I don't think climate change is going to matter. Is it? I don't think so. But yeah.
How would you yourself like to be remembered?
Probably, I think I'd just like to be remembered as a good mum and a nice person. Hopefully people think I'm a nice person. I mean, I just think sometimes it's just when someone thinks about you, that they just have a nice memory. I think I'd hate to be remembered for someone that's done something horrible. As long as someone, when you're not here, that once the sadness is gone, that they remembered you with a smile, I think that'd be enough.